Markets with David Modell.
Welcome to Looking at the Markets with David Modell. Today my very special guest is Mr. Vince Sirachi. Now, Mr. Sirachi is a mineral exploration and mining entrepreneur with over 25 years of international business and capital markets experience. Currently, Mr. Sirachi is the CEO of Kucho Copper, which is traded in Canada under the ticker symbol KC and in the United States under the ticker symbol DSRRF. So, Mr. Sirachi, thank you so much for joining me today on Looking at the Markets.
Thank you, David. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, but I wanted to talk about certain things, especially precious metals. I'm so excited about precious metals and about the opportunity that your company, Kucho Copper, may offer to investors who want to get in on a ground floor opportunity. But first, let's talk about the macro environment in precious metals. I like to look at the silver markets, the copper markets, the gold markets, but copper seems to be an underrated precious metal because people focus so much on gold and silver. What is your outlook for precious metals and for copper in particular?
Well, for centuries, gold has always been the go-to asset amongst investors worried about all sorts of financial risks. And it looks like, we're coming into an inflationary environment in the U.S. and with global economies really beginning to fire. And, when consumer prices accelerate, copper tends to rise 3 times more than gold. Copper is more sensitive to inflation and the dollar because of its uses and its growth within the economy. So, from a money-making perspective, I think in this environment right now, copper is the commodity you want to be in.
Absolutely. Now, I wanted to talk about employment or unemployment and inflation. In the U.S. economy, at least, we've seen low unemployment, relatively speaking, record high confidence levels, millennials hitting peak earnings. The tax cuts are going to probably be instituted very soon. Does all this lead to the possibility of inflation hitting us really hard? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to profess to be an expert on what's happening in the U.S. economy, and I read what everyone else does. But it looks like the U.S. is on a trajectory of some constant rate hikes here. And it looks like, yes, there are concerns about inflationary pressures coming into the U.S. and I would also guess other markets around the world. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think with that on the rise, with the big proposed infrastructure spend in the U.S. And China is just another place. I mean, China is a very big player, obviously, in the copper space. And I was just looking at some data the other day that China's going to continue its infrastructure spending through 2018. Which is expected to be among the biggest drivers of economic growth in the coming years in China as well. So I believe all that plays out very well for copper.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there were ever a time to get into precious metals, to take a position, and copper, why not do it now? We've seen 9 years of low inflation. The central banks are not going to be accommodating necessarily as much as they have been. The natural course probably is going to be increased inflations. And that means commodities can really outperform in the coming years. Now, why would somebody choose copper in particular if they're going to get into commodities?
Copper, I think copper's it's a pretty exciting space right now. You've got one, as we've been discussing, a good hedge against inflation. That copper itself offers that upside potential. But two, with all that's going on in the world, with regards to electric vehicles. People have been paying a lot of attention to the lithium and the cobalt stories and their play in that market. But copper is a significant aspect of what's happening with regards to the EVs. These new vehicles will use 2 to 3 times the amount of copper in them than the conventional combustion engine vehicles do right now. You got to remember that copper is, when you're talking about infrastructure build outs, copper is wire in the sky. It's the traditional electric generation, but it's also a significant component to all the renewable technologies in the world. So wind turbines, solar panels, energy storage. Copper plays that role, and as we see our planet moving towards more renewable techs, I just see the demand in copper continuing to rise. On the flip side, we've got I think demand increases coming, but you look at the copper market, and you've got annual copper discoveries have been on a significant decline in the past decade. You've got global copper producer reserves, which have been on a significant decline from 2003, when reserve grades were around 1% to being less than half of that right now in 2016. So the supply side looks like it's starting to kind of dwindle a little bit from that perspective. So I think it sets up for a very, very good future in the metal.
Yeah, with the potential for increased demand, possibly limited supply, the price really can only go up as far as I'm concerned. And copper has so many uses. You touched upon electric vehicles, solar, it just goes on and on. Now, I wanted to talk about an interesting topic here, Wheaton precious metals. There's a tie-in with Kucho copper in particular. So who is Wheaton precious metals?
So Wheaton Precious Metals is the world's largest silver and gold streaming company. They have a current market cap of about $12 billion. They've got a fantastic management team and one of the best technical teams on the street. So Wheaton has been very particular about the streaming deals that they've been doing. I think we are the third streaming deal that they've done in the past 7 or 8 years. In the past 3 years. Check that. But I would the only equity investment that they've made in a junior developer since 2008. So Wheaton's like I said, a highly technical, conservative group that takes on the best companies only as far as their streaming transactions. So we were excited to have them come on board. It's good validation of the project from a group like Wheaton, not only to on the streaming side, but for them to do a $4 million equity private placement, and then on top of that, they did a $20 million convertible loan into us, which they've never done before in a junior development stage company. So, Wheaton's after the silver and the gold component in our project, which sets up really well for us. Our primary commodities are copper and zinc, so it doesn't encumber the primary commodities in our project. Like I said, Wheaton's interested in the silver and gold, so there's a very, very good marriage there for us and the project and Wheaton. So, all in all, the Wheaton financing package, if you will, if you take into account the equity, the debt, and what they're going to provide as part of the streaming deal, it exceeds $100 million. So, we're very excited to have Wheaton as partners with us on this project and moving forward.
Yeah. I understand they've talking about Wheaton Precious Metals, have taken a stock equity position with you. Talk about a huge vote of confidence. Now, you mentioned the project. What can you tell us about the project itself?
Yeah, I guess we should talk a little bit about the Kucho Project. We are an advanced stage development stage project. It's a high-grade copper zinc deposit in northern British Columbia. It currently has probable reserves of 10.5 million tons, grading about 2% copper and 3% zinc, or just under 3% copper equivalent. The project is approximately 100 kilometers east of Dease Lake in BC, but more importantly, it can be accessed by airstrip and by seasonal road via Highway 37, for those that want to look at a map of BC. And the project demonstrates very robust economics, and this was very appealing to us in the beginning. And importantly, it demonstrates robust economics at 275 copper and 110 zinc. That was where the prices we used in our pre-feasibility study that we posted midsummer. So current commodity prices at 320 plus copper and $1.50 ish zinc increased the value of the project dramatically. This is for us there's not many copper projects out there that show the robustness on the economic side at 275 copper. This thing would still be a mine at 250 copper, and there are very, very few copper projects out there that can demonstrate that. So with those economics in place, we've got a very manageable capex, and most importantly, significant low risk upside potential. Our goal is to double the size of this project in a very low risk environment, if you will. As I said, we have currently 10.5 million tons in probable reserves. We're looking to get that up closer to 20 million tons over the work that we're going to do over the next 12 months. So that's where there's additional significant upside potential. We're in a part of British Columbia where many development projects have been recently permitted, and mines are currently in production as well.
Yeah, that sounds like huge potential for growth here with the project and with the company itself. Now, as for me, when I invest in stocks, I look for undervalued stocks. Things that I don't want to jump on the bandwagon that everybody has already jumped on. Okay, I like to be first to the party, not last to the party. How undervalued do you believe this stock and this company is compared with your peers?
Well, this project has we acquired it from Capstone Mining, and so it's been sitting in Capstone for about 7 years. So it's been a bit of a sleeper asset in there, if you will. So we've been working on the acquisition for the past 6 months. Kucho Copper just came trading a couple of weeks ago. So in essence, it's a very, very new story to the market, and you're able to invest in this standalone asset just recently as of the last couple of weeks. Excuse me. And we came out at, and we financed this at what I felt to be very, very good multiples. Right now, the project is currently trading at today's prices, and against current commodity prices at about a 0.23 times net asset value. Our peers average about a 0.6 times net asset value. So there's a lot of room in there for price appreciation.
Right.
And none of that takes into account what I mentioned earlier about the expansion potential and our goal to double the size of the project.
Yeah. So this would be appealing to both value investors as well as traders who like a growth stock because there is so much growth potential.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, I also like to invest in companies that have their milestones set for the year ahead. So for 2018, what are the milestones for Kucho Copper?
So 2018 will be a very, very busy year for us. It will be there will be a lot of milestones, a lot of news coming to market. Primarily around, we are going to be conducting a robust metallurgical program to optimize recoveries. We think there is room for optimization, which plays directly into the economics of the project. We think that we will be significantly advancing the permitting process and de-risking the project from that perspective. We'll be conducting over 30,000 meters of exploration and resource expansion drilling over the year. And we will be providing updated resources and reserves on the project, showing that growth potential through the work that we've done throughout the year. And in addition, we will always be looking for additional opportunities to add value to Kucho, either through M&A and or other strategic initiatives throughout 2018.
Now, I wanted to talk about the team at Kucho Copper because there's no company without a great team. So can you tell us a little bit about who's involved in the project?
Yes, of course. I believe wholeheartedly in having a very good team wrapped around a project. And Kucho Copper has got a team that I believe is tailor-made to the future success of the project. We have a fantastic technical team with immense experience in these types of deposits and the work required to complete the feasibility study. We have a permitting team led by Allison Rippon Armstrong, who is one of the premier community and environment people in the field. Alongside her, we have Bill Bennett on the board, who was the BC Mines Minister, who just resigned from government in the, last summer. And obvious benefits to, with regards to being in BC and being in Bill's backyard. Stephen Quinn, who's the current CEO of Midas Gold. Stephen was the former CEO of Sherwood Copper that owned this asset in the mid-2000s. Stephen was always a big believer in Kucho, always believed that it should have been put into production, and that path changed when Sherwood and Capstone merged. So, we've got a significant, I think, advantage on the permitting side, on the technical side, and the rest of the team fills in really nicely with regards to corporate and capital markets. So again, I think we've got a fantastic team to drive this project and this company forward.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. And I believe it's a fantastic opportunity, a ground floor opportunity for people who want to and who like to invest in companies that are undervalued, that have growth, massive growth potential, and that have a great team and great leadership, such as Mr. Sorachi, who I've been interviewing today. If you want to learn more about Kucho Copper, I definitely recommend you check out the website, which is www.kucho.ca, and that's on your screen right now. Feel free to visit that anytime. Mr. Sorachi, I really appreciate your time, and I hope to talk to you again really soon here on Looking at the Markets.
Thanks, David.